Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side, and there's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Welcome, everyone, to the Green and Golden Boys Packers podcast. This is the podcast for Packer fans who are more interested in the injury report than how Jordan Love did last Friday. I am your co-host, Charles, and with me, as always, is Marcus. Marcus, how the heck are you today?
Not too bad. I'm getting over a cold here, so you'll notice my voice sounds a little weird. But other than that, I'm not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It is Wednesday that we're recording this, so we've had several days to look back on the game film, aka I watched highlights a few times from last Friday. But like I said in the intro, we've got some breaking news on a few key players that will be playing hopefully sooner rather than later coming off the PUP list. You want to walk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it breaking news at this point since it is Wednesday and it's been a few days since this news broke. But however, Robert Tonyan, Christian Watson, and Elgton Jenkins are all off of the PUP list, which is excellent news. You know, I think we were all wondering when, EJ was going to be taken off the PUP. We weren't sure if he was going to be ready to go, week one, but it looks like he'll be ready to go at least in the first month of the season, based on this information.
Yeah, that's surprising. I mean, I feel like we've done moves like this in the past, and they still end up sitting out, like thinking of David Bakhtiari specifically. Last year, I feel like he was available, obviously, sooner than he came out. But correct me if I'm wrong, the PUP list would have made him ineligible for the first 4 weeks. So now that they're off, the presumption is we're going to see them either week 1, 2, 3, or 4. Is that the logic?
That's right. I mean, obviously anything could happen, but
right.
The assumption is that now that they're off the PUP, we can expect them to start one of those first 4 weeks of the season.
And for Bakhtiari, since he's still on that list, can we still take him off prior to week 1 and theoretically still have him on week 1? Or was there some kind of deadline that you're aware of that now he's officially out till week 5?
Yeah, as far as I know, once the Packers finalize their 53-man roster, they have to either designate him to the PUP or activate him to the 53. So if they activate him to the 53, then they could start him whenever. But if he's on the PUP, once the roster is finalized, that means that he will have to sit out at least the first 4 weeks.
Okay, so we still have some time that hopefully we'll get with Bakhtiari. Again, I don't expect him earlier, but to your point, or to maybe everyone's point, of the fact that the Packers took these specific guys off this early, getting them on the field with the rest of the guys is a very good sign, hopefully leaning towards week 1, 2 versus week 3, 4, because I think our biggest question mark after, they looked fairly good actually, but after this last week and leading into that 49ers game, I know everyone had concerns about the wideouts and that offensive line. So it is really good to see Elgton Jenkins getting off that list. But speaking of that offensive line, I guess you don't have to go there first, but you were not in Green Bay. You and I were together actually on Friday night, not watching football. I was watching the old Chester Bay play down in Rochester. That was amazing, by the way. But were you able to rewatch the preseason game against the 49ers this past Friday?
Yeah. So interesting note on that. I've been looking for ways to watch preseason games, and it's obviously hard because we're in Minneapolis, so you don't really, those are never televised. You can download a VPN, I guess, if you want to, and watch them from the Packers website or through like a local television provider. However, this year the NFL has a new streaming application called NFL Plus. You get a free 7-day trial, so I'm trying that right now. With the NFL Plus Premium, I guess there's 2 tiers. It's like $10 a month, so I can get it for $10 for the entire preseason. And you can watch, as soon as the game is over, you can watch the entire game, either, like full broadcast, essentially 2.5 hours, or you can watch a condensed version, which is essentially just the running time of the game. So, more like 45 to 50 minutes. I actually watched the game in its entirety on Saturday, and then I watched it the condensed version on Sunday, just to kind of see everything kind of bang, 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 without all of the commentary. Go ahead.
So I don't think it's quite as cool as it will be in a couple of years because, well, I'll touch on that later. But I'm pretty sure you can watch out-of-market preseason games live with that Plus version. But once the regular season starts, it would be after the fact. But the thing I was alluding to there a second ago was, I think while reading up on this, DirecTV's contract or something with Sunday Ticket is expiring in the next year or so. And I think the next step is some kind of subscription plan or pay by the game plan to be able to watch live out of market games. And that's where I feel like they have to go next. I can easily see spending $15-20 on a game, that you and I want to watch here in Minneapolis. And I think that's like the next step for the NFL to make that much more money. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've been banging my head against a wall for the last decade because I couldn't believe that DirecTV wouldn't offer Sunday Ticket as a standalone.
Right.
I think they do if you're in an apartment building and you can't have an antenna,
Yep.
or if you're a student or something like that. But I don't understand the logic behind not offering that to the general public because I'm not going to pay $300 a year to get like the 4 games we don't get on TV here. But I would gladly pay $100, just to get the Packers games. Like I don't want every single game. I really only want the Packers games. So
I joke about that all the time. I'm like, if we were like the Browns, I feel like if we were big Browns fans, we would have to pay it. But because there would always be playing at noon. But you nailed it. I mean, half of we'll do a schedule breakdown here shortly, but half our schedule is prime time. So we get the games here in Minneapolis. So it's really the other half. You're right. It's tough to spend too much money on a full season where half of them you would have got anyway.
yeah, and the news right now is that Apple, Amazon, and Google are all in the hunt to buy the rights to stream NFL games, and I would have to imagine that if one of those companies buys the rights, then they would. You'd have an add-on for one of their tiers. You'd be able to spend, it's $10 a month for, your team or whatever. I mean, it'd probably be way more than $10 a month. But, offering it as a standalone or as an add-on would just be, I just can't. It's unfathomable to me that this hasn't been a thing yet, and I just can't understand why. But
and game by game too, I think should be an option. But anyway, we got on this topic because we were talking about the preseason 49ers games. I highlighted a few players here. You watched the game twice in its entirety, so maybe you'll have more to comment on each of these. But let's start with what I think was, the biggest. They had the most eyes on it, I'd say, on the Packers side. I think Trey Lance playing was the biggest, national headline. But from a Packers perspective, looking long-term with either a trade or the future of the organization, all eyes were on Jordan Love this year because he finally kind of had a full, regular preseason. And theoretically, if he stays healthy, knock on wood, he should get 3 good halves of preseason football, which is more than he's had in his first 2 years combined. So Jordan Love. 2 touchdown passes, 13 for 24, 176 yards, an awesome deep ball to Romeo Doubs, but 3 picks. What did your eye test tell you the first time you watched Jordan Love specifically, and what did it tell you the second time?
I don't know that there was much different the second time, honestly, because the pick, I think the first pick he threw was a pop-up off of the hands of Schmitty, as Mark Tauscher would call him, Tyler Davis, and popped right, just fell right in the hands of the defender. That was probably a ball that was maybe a little bit behind the receiver, but other than that, it was a ball that should have, at the very least, have just been an incompletion. The second interception was to Romeo Doubs, where he basically got wrestled out of his hands. Again, maybe a little behind him, but not an awful throw. The third one, I think that's not a great decision. He threw it into tight coverage, didn't lead the receiver, so essentially was right there for the defender to pick off. Not a great decision. The throw could have been a foot or a foot and a half further out from the receiver, lead him a little bit. So I think those are the things he'll get better at. But I think the first 2 were probably just kind of bad circumstances. Unfortunate, a little bit unlucky. So every article I've seen has been like, oh, Jordan Love throws 3 picks and lost to 49ers. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, but that's that is just very, very, very surface level. And I think if you look at his numbers throughout the game, and let's say we take away those 2 picks, he has a pretty good day. There were a couple of drops, probably 3 or 4 drops by the receivers in addition to that. And I think
which happened, by the way.
Yeah,
it happened. Right.
Yeah, and I think the thing I noticed the most when I was watching him was the ball was coming out more quickly. He seemed less timid in the pocket. He seemed more decisive, more confident. He just looked like a better thrower of the football. I mean, he made some really nice throws. He had, he overthrew Romeo Doubs, and then came back on the next play or the second 2 plays later and hit him for that over-the-shoulder, just a beauty touch pass for a touchdown. I think this is a guy that we're starting to see some of that upside that I think the front office has been touting since they drafted him. He's certainly not to the level of probably a starting caliber quarterback yet. He's only played 3 preseason games in his entire NFL career to date, and 1 regular season game.
That's it right there. I mean, I had a similar reaction as you did, I think, where to me watching it live, I said, okay, that one's not his fault, that one's not his fault. That one, the third one probably is. Although Aaron Rodgers, I'll criticize Love first, then I'll compliment him. Aaron Rodgers being the best ball thrower in NFL history, right? The GOAT ball thrower. He seems to put balls in places where he doesn't allow it to not be his fault. You know what I mean? He doesn't even seem to have those weird tipped interceptions. Yeah, he gets them too, but there's some quarterbacks that just have a knack for getting picked off, and even if they're not all their fault, right? Maybe that one that's slightly behind him that Dobbs shouldn't have gotten, you take the more easy play that I forget who was open, but was in the flat, I think it was, right? And just don't, even though, it should be a completion, take the safer play. Now, that has been something that people have criticized Rodgers for, being too safe in big moments. But again, there's kind of a balance there of not putting the ball in a dangerous position, even though the quote-unquote fault wasn't placed on him. Now, that being said, Aaron Rodgers was interviewed, I think it was yesterday, after the practice, the first practice between the Packers and the Saints are in town this week. And I think it was the yesterday interview where he said he didn't know what some of the receivers were doing on some of those routes. So it wasn't like a slight in or slight out, miss route on some of them. Aaron Rodgers was essentially applying they left him out to dry on a few of those routes, and I don't know specifically which ones he was talking about, but that makes me kind of eat my last comments, those words a little bit, because if even Aaron's calling out the receivers, which he did do, calling out the receivers making constant and mistakes more than once, you got to feel for a guy who's only playing in his 3rd preseason game.
Yeah, for sure, and it's tough. It's a tough position to be in if you're Jordan Love, because you're always going to be compared to Aaron Rodgers, just like Rodgers was compared to Favre until he kind of became Aaron Rodgers. But, he doesn't have much experience, and I have faith in the organization. I have faith in the front office. I mean, he's never going to be – he probably won't be a Hall of Fame quarterback. He won't be nearly as good as Aaron Rodgers, but there's still a possibility in my mind that he becomes a serviceable starting quarterback, and, it remains to be seen. If I had to predict it right now, I say Rodgers plays 2 more seasons and we pick up Love's 5th-year option or extend him, and he's starting in 2 seasons. But
I think you're right, and you're right. It's not fair to compare him, but I'm going to compare him one more time. I read this or heard this on the radio station here a few days ago, so I don't have the exact stats. But someone looked up Aaron Rodgers' first preseason game of his 3rd year, where he started eventually. They're very similar stats. I think Rodgers went 19 for 27, 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, only 1 pick. But if you have the argument that 2 of them are completely not, Love's fault, he had very, very similar stats to Aaron Rodgers did, who had 3 full preseasons when he started, whereas Love, as we've mentioned,